It started with a kiss, sang the band Hot Chocolate in the 70s. The next line of that song was, "I never thought it would come to this." Hello, I'm Mike Bain from Christian Voice New Zealand. Now, who would have thought where a simple show of affection could lead? In just about every book of the New Testament, we're exhorted to greet one another with a kiss. I guess that was the way they did things 2,000 years ago. Well, today we're no longer kissing our brothers, but shaking hands, which is another of those greetings from yesteryear, but still very much an accepted greeting today. But as any teenager will tell you that sometimes a kiss may not be acceptable, or if it happens, it could lead down a track perhaps where teenagers shouldn't venture. But it's a kiss which was given and not received willingly, which caused a bit of a ruckus recently when we watched Luis Rubiales, president of Spain's Football Federation, kiss one of his soccer players, Jenny Hermoso, and he kissed her on the lips without her consent. Rubiales just couldn't see what was wrong with his action. He was overjoyed and full of pride at that time as he congratulated his country's players who had, for the first time in history, won the FIFA Women's World Cup. It's disappointing that the action taken by the Federation's president has overshadowed a great moment for Spanish sport. Rubiales has since resigned, and appropriately so, but his actions do raise some concerns about our actions when we meet people. The furor over Rubiales' unwanted kiss should make us all stop and think about how we can sometimes impose ourselves onto other people's private space. You know, in business, in workplaces, even in the settings of church, and dare I say, even within your own family. I mean, a handshake is offered by extending one's hand. If it's okay and welcomed, it's returned. Now, I must tell you that my wife, Mandy, is a hugger when she meets people. For the record, I'm not. But an article written by Abby Thomas in a British Christian publication following the Rubiales kiss reflects on her own experiences and what the church can do to make sure physical contact is helpful and honouring to God and one another. She reflects on the first time at the age of 14 when she was sexually assaulted by a man on a crowded ferry when on holiday in Italy. She describes how the man began rubbing himself against her, and as she tried to get away, he followed her. Now, this unusual practice may sound kind of innocent, but innocent it is not. What it is called, and it has its own name, and it's called fratourism. I think that's how you pronounce it, but anyway, look it up. Aged 14, Abby Thomas had no idea what was going on, but she felt uncomfortable and had to move. Now she's aged 41. She writes, "It's still not unusual for me to receive unwanted sexual advances, comments, or even touch. The difference now is that I know it's wrong and I'm prepared to answer back," she says. She describes the moment in her article this way. "On one occasion while riding my bike wearing shorts, a teenager on a school trip made lewd comments from the pavement. Now, when I processed what he said, I cycled back and explained to the now silent student how his words had made me feel." Now, flustered, his teacher, who had clearly not been planning to address the issue, muttered that, he'd take it up back at school. But she writes, "Many times as a teenager, the father of a friend would initiate hugs with me in church. And they were always too long and too close. But I'd walk away smiling nervously, brushing it off as if nothing. In the heat of the moment, it's often hard to know how to respond to unwanted touch." Now, interestingly, over the weekend, I attended a church service in Auckland and watched a well-known pastor moving through the foyer before the service, touching women and giving them a pastoral hug. A pastoral hug is a on-the-side hug, where there's minimal contact with the body, mainly around the shoulders. And if you're a bit of a sporting nut and you watch the All Blacks, the best way to describe it is it's where a player may be yellow or red carded because of a shoulder charge. But anyway, a couple of things went through my mind. One, it was nice to see how friendly and loving this man was, given the response he was getting. Two, I also pondered how other males viewed his actions. Did they feel his actions were inappropriate? And three, How quickly we can be to cast judgment to see what's not there. But such is the world we live in. But back to that smack on the lips. It was public and came under much scrutiny as the video footage was examined, and there it was, Jenny Hermoso, the player at the centre of the controversy, who said the kiss was unwelcomed and smiling as she left the stage. Now, Exhibit B apparently was a video of her laughing on the bus. Now, it's just a kiss, but remember Hermoso is also a lesbian. So, was this the reason it wasn't welcome? Now, putting homosexuality to one side, our writer Abby Thomas says no, explaining a smile or a laugh can indicate nervousness or discomfort as much as happiness or joy. The Rubiales kiss, or the lapse of judgment, provides us all a moment to reflect of our own practices. For too long, women, both in the church and outside of it, had accepted unwanted touch as part of life. And it's not just women. You know, for men, hugs from women are just as inappropriate. From family to family and culture to culture, expressions of affection vary in Latin America and parts of Europe. Cheek kissing is normal. In parts of Nigeria and South Asia, it's common for male friends to hold hands. And to be honest, here in New Zealand, if some bloke gives me a kiss on the cheek, I'd be backing off quickly and saying, "Mate!" Well, look, don't get me wrong, the Apostle Paul instructed the early Christian congregations to greet one another with a kiss, because that was very much the custom of the day. You may remember Judas greeted Jesus with a kiss. When you meet someone new or an old friend, there's always a physical exchange in that greeting, and that may be in the form of some affection. Positive touch, though, can promote well-being and honours God. But let's face it, for some in your congregation, a hug or a handshake may be the only physical contact that they'll have all week. But ensuring that our touch is always positive requires us to be thoughtful. You've got to think, why do you want to give someone a hug? For some, physical touch can remind them of abusive situations like our writer Abby had. It's important we reflect on our own behaviour. Am I doing this for myself or for the person I want to support? Going back to teenagers who come to church, it's not always obvious that there's that power imbalance. But it is important to consider power in other contexts too. Are you an older man approaching a younger woman? Are you a leader greeting a new church member? If you're in a position of power, consider whether your physical contact could convey a false intimacy, cause fear, or leave someone feeling awkward or confused. As I said, my wife's a hugger, but she checks first. I hear her say, "I'm a hugger. Is it okay if I give you one?" To be honest, I don't get asked, I just get wrapped up. But Rubiales didn't check. Bang! Jenny Hermoso got kissed. She smiled, she even laughed about it, but regardless of whether it was a nervous embarrassment, it was unwanted. It's not wrong to show affection to our family, our friends, workmates, or anyone else, but I'd love to see more adults in the church pausing to reflect on how we show love to one another. You know, the more we talk about it, the more we help each other to learn the language of consent, how to speak out when something is not right and admit when we get it wrong. Now, maybe Rubiales' kiss on Hermoso's lips was a lapse in judgment, but it overshadowed everything the Spanish soccer team achieved by winning the World Cup. But a lapse of judgment on behalf of a pastor giving a hug to a member of the congregation who felt the same level of embarrassment as Hermoso could eventuate in a similar outcome for that pastor, and it would overshadow all the great work that he's done in God's name.